Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to the final week of class and our final assignment. I'm going to kind of continue where we left off, talking about sales and the sales funnel. And this last homework is going to kind of be a little bit of a culmination of kind of everything, albeit it's focused on sales, but definitely, as an analysis as a business owner, we can do to really evaluate how effective we're being kind of across all of our efforts, and hopefully as a tool to help you analyze your business correctly. So let's go ahead here and share my screen. Okay, so should just be seeing the main page. I'm going to go in here to modules and down into our sales portion. And we'll see that this week what we're doing is we're talking about a sales funnel. And essentially what you're going to be doing is you're going to be putting together and analyzing a sales funnel. And I'm doing this as a digital business, and we're doing this as a digital kind of analysis, but this is more broadly applicable. When I explain this a little bit more, I think it'll be more obvious that it's broadly applicable, whether you're selling and marketing online or in person. But this analysis, the specific analysis, is done for kind of online advertising. If you're not doing online, take these principles and apply them as best you can to maybe a physical sales campaign. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. But just as a heads up, the way I'm going to construct this conversation is around how a digital campaign works, mainly because the data that we get from a digital campaign is more discrete, meaning there's an easily identifiable input and output, i.e. clicks, that are trackable and traceable. So it's a little bit easier to conduct it. That doesn't mean it's perfect in either respect. A lot of people assume that like digital campaigns are perfect data. They aren't. They can tell you how many people clicked on something. They can't tell you why somebody clicked on something, which is often, when we're trying to improve, important. So just because you've got data that tells you something's working, don't assume why it's working. Anyway, so you'll see here what this assignment is. You're going to research your market. You're going to find some keywords that would drive traffic. The reason you're going to do that is if you find those keywords, what you're able to do is determine a relative cost per click or cost per click that a user clicks on those links. From there, we can estimate a capture rate and a drip rate, which ultimately leads to our buy, and we can put that in a calculation that then kind of helps us determine, should I spend the money on this advertising campaign? Now we're talking about sales, so the question would be like, well, why would I spend money on this campaign? Or why? How is this marketing? Is this sales? Where is this? This analysis is kind of a convergence of sales and marketing. If we think about marketing as the creative aspects behind a lot of this work, and sales is the operations aspects, those two really need to come together in order to launch an effective campaign. So we kind of retool. If it doesn't work, we retool our creative and retool our sales message to go out and try again based on maybe some evidence we've received. If it does work, maybe we do more of the same, we amp it up, those types of things. So this is kind of everything coming together into this one sort of analysis. So I'm going to actually bump over and explain to you how a sales funnel works. And then hopefully that'll give you some better information on how to put this together. I guess real quick before I do that, if you come over, you'll see that this simple spreadsheet, you're going to want to go to File, make a copy. So file, make a copy. You can make a copy of this spreadsheet, fill out your information for your industry, your keywords, and then the kind of points of data that you've calculated here. And that'll pick out what your CAC, your customer acquisition cost, is. And that's what we're doing the analysis around. I realize I'm kind of coming in and throwing a lot of terminology at you. So you may want to rewind this after I go through the second portion of the video to kind of understand these things, but I kind of wanted to get the assignment, out of the way up front, just in case some people are looking to dive into that. So apologies for, kind of, I noticed an error. Apologies for some jargon, but hopefully I'm going to get that out of the way right now when we bump into talking about the actual sales funnel. So if you come to this page, I guess it's page 8, lesson 7 in the book I've published online. It'll give you more information what you're looking at in Canvas. I'm going to look at this and go off of this, but you can go wherever you want. So we are this thing on the right, this is what we call our customer sales funnel, or it says CAC funnel, CAC funnel at the top. CAC stands for customer acquisition cost, and what the customer acquisition cost of our company is really the amount of money we need to spend to produce a customer. Okay, so that's CAC. Our lifetime value is or LTV is the average amount of profit that is generated by a customer within our business. So if we think about if our business is kind of a one-time purchase, the lifetime purchase might be, let's say I'm selling an item for $20 and I make, let's say, $5 in profit. If I'm only expecting one-time buy from a customer, the lifetime value from that customer is $5. Now, if I have a recurring customer, let's say I've got a childcare business, for instance, and let's say I'm charging $100 a month, and of that, let's say maybe $50 is quote unquote profit, kind of, top line profit before I pay myself. What we'd say there is, so in that business, $50 is my 1 month profit, but let's say I expect to have a customer, let's say for 3 years is kind of my average customer length. So my lifetime value of a customer is 3 years. So 3 times 12 months per year times $50 per month per year. So 3 times 12 times 50 would be our lifetime value. Now, what the profitability equation says is, so long as the profit that I receive from a customer is greater than the amount of money that it takes to capture that customer, I should move forward with spending that money on kind of that sales and marketing campaign in order to capture that customer. Now, if you think about that, I'm pulling 3 years of profits back from that, my example. I'm pulling 3 years of profits back, and I'm analyzing, hey, should I spend this money today, on this marketing campaign? And some people may, that may pop in your head like, whoa, that means, so let's see, three times, what does our math here come out to? Let's do this real quick. So in my example, 3 times 12 times 50, so we're talking $1,800. So what my equation says is, as long as it costs me less than $1,800 to land a customer, I should go move forward with that advertising campaign. Now, a lot of people may say, well, I'm spending $1,800 today to capture $1,800, over time. That's a big, that's pretty a big thing to swallow, right? $1,800 in my pocket, or in my hand, is $1,800 in my hand. So That's not the wrong way to think about this. Obviously, the larger the dollar amount, the larger the lifetime value, the larger the customer acquisition cost, the closer the delta on those two, we may get into this analysis where it says, well, even though that is a profitable, sales and marketing campaign, I may not want to spend it today because it's too risky. That's an okay analysis. So it's okay to run this and not do something just because the math is telling you to do it. There are all sorts of things that are left out of the math. This is kind of idealized. So what we really want to see is we want to see our spread, the difference between our lifetime and our customer acquisition cost. We want to see that kind of as great as possible, but we want kind of our total expenditure that we're going to spend on a sales and marketing campaign to be within some sort of budgetary constraint. So if I do this analysis and I analyze a marketing campaign that's going to cost me $5 million to implement, but I don't have $5 million in the bank, I would question whether or not that's a realistic thing that we should be analyzing for. So we want to, be realistic. We want to be comfortable, but what we want to do is we want to analyze these things. Really, we're analyzing on the margin, we're analyzing on a per customer basis, and then we're going to roll the math back into how do we analyze a campaign in total. All right, so that's the bottom. So this is so our this funnel is going to allow us to calculate our customer acquisition cost. So let's talk about how the heck we calculate it. Well, the way a funnel works is basically at the top of this funnel, all of the possible people that are coming into my product or service are coming into the top, and then out of the bottom, that's getting whittled down to all the people that are actually buying. So I hope you would acknowledge that when we think about our target market, our target demographic, which we've done, previously in this course, when we think about that, we can come to, we've got a certain number of people that we're addressing, right? Our addressable market, where there's, if we're doing a childcare business, there's 1,000 people in my area that, 1,000 families in my area that are potential buyers. If we're talking about maybe an online e-commerce business, there's so many people that are in the market for high-end jewelry or something like that. There's a certain number of people, and then there's a certain kind of number of dollars that are available, to spend on this type of service. So, and what we need to do as a business is the first thing we need to do is we need to generate leads. We need to inform these people that our business exists and we have a product or service that might fill their needs. So that first push out, that first thing we do to attract people to even know what is going on with our business, that's where we generate leads. And, that can look like all sorts of things. That could be, doing Google ads, as I'm suggesting on this project. It could also be handing out flyers. It could be running an ad in the newspaper. It could be publishing blog posts. It could be anything that's going to cause that initial interest in our company. But the reality is, like, all of those things have an associated cost. Top line. They're all going to cost X amount of dollars per month or whatever. So we can analyze it. We can analyze this on a per month basis. We can analyze this on a per click basis. We can analyze this on just a per campaign basis, whatever that means. It could be a 3-month campaign or something like that. But at the end of the day, these numbers are going to, we're going to get some sort of total cost of running, this campaign. So the reason I analyze this on the reason this is easily analyzed on a cost per click basis is because Google basically gives us that number and say, hey, a click costs 10, 15, 20 cents. And if you look at the homework, you can find those numbers. If you know how to find them directly in Google, that's awesome. If you don't, you can use an AI tool like ChatGPT or something like that to help you determine those numbers for those keywords. So once we have those leads, generally the way an online business works is we're going to want, once we've got somebody coming to our website, we're going to try to grab a piece of personal information from them, whether it's a email address in the form, so I may have somebody come to my website and say, hey, download our free PDF, to learn X, Y, and Z. All you need to do is provide me your email address. Well, there's a reason they're asking for your email address, is because that will help us out in the next step, which is, you'll see in a second. But so basically, so people hear about our business, we ask for a personal piece of information. From there, we now drip out additional marketing materials. So in the form of, if I've asked somebody for their email address, now what I would do is run an email campaign over time, hitting them with, a piece of email, marketing my product or service every 2 months, or maybe it's additional web ads. But basically, I'm dripping out additional kind of hits of content. Now, if I'd asked somebody for a physical address, let's say like I went to Home Depot and, I talked to somebody about lighting, and, now I start to receive flyers in the mail from those people. So they asked for a personal piece of information, which was my home address, and they started delivering me, mailers basically about their products. So that's drip marketing. And from there, the next process is, so we capture the lead, we generate the lead, we drive the lead to, if it's Google, clicking on our ad to go to our website. If I'm at Home Depot, it's coming up and talking. If I'm selling lighting at Home Depot, it's my lead generation was getting somebody to come up to me at Home Depot, and then the next step would be providing me their home address. And then after that, my drip campaign would be, if I'm on Google, it would be delivering emails. If I'm this Home Depot business, it would be sending, additional flyers of information. And then from there, some certain percentage of people that have gone through that process will buy. Okay. So basically, at each step, from lead generation to contact capture, and from contact capture to drip, there's some sort of, there's some sort of loss. I'm sorry, from lead generation to contact capture, and then from drip to buy, there's some sort of loss in the system. Okay, so if I'm running a Google Ads campaign, I'm only going to get 100% of people that see my ad are not going to click, right? Now, of the people that do click, 100% of the people that arrive at my website, not 100% of them are going to give me their email address. Once I have their email address and I start delivering them emails, 100% of people that deliver, or that read that have provided me their email address and are getting my emails, are not going to buy my product. So there's a loss rate at each one of these steps. And basically, what we can do, if we know what the top line cost, if we know what the overall cost of our campaign is, basically, and we can estimate through either industry specific, industry numbers, or historical data that we may have. If we can estimate the loss from lead generation to contact capture and from drip to buy, if we can estimate those numbers, we can now estimate what does our lifetime value need to be in order to be greater than our customer acquisition cost. Okay, and if you look down here, this is how we calculate it specifically for a cost per click campaign. So if I divide my cost per click, so if I get a keyword, I find out what is that cost per click cost at Google. So it's 10 cents a click or whatever. I can divide that by my capture rate. My capture rate is the rate of, how many clicks do I get versus how many contacts do I get? So if I get 100 people clicking my link and I get 10 emails, I've got a 10% capture rate. Okay. Now, The drip percentage is, so then I take those 10 contacts and I start feeding them emails. And let's say out of those, one person buys my product. Well, that would mean out of 10, one converts. So again, I've got a 10% conversion rate. So I had a 10% conversion rate on my lead gen, and I had a 10% conversion rate on my drip. So my capture percentage was 10% and my drip percentage was 10%, which basically means I have a 1% conversion rate. And so then if we know what our customer acquisition, or if our individual cost per click is, I can do the math, I can divide that cost per click by my 10% capture rate by my 10% drip rate, and basically that'll give me my lifetime value that a customer needs to be in order to why am I blanking here? In order to justify the spend on this campaign. Now, so if you look here, basically, so I've analyzed this for a 10% cost per click rate, a 20% capture rate, and 2% drip rate. Basically, that means I've got my customer acquisition cost is $25, which means that if I cannot pull out $30 of profit from a customer over their lifetime, this is not a viable marketing campaign. It's not a profitable marketing campaign. It's not it's not grossly profitable, which means you definitely shouldn't do it. Now, again, we get into that kind of gray area where it might be profitable, but you may still not make the decision to do it because it's got too many, the capital needs are too great or something like that. And that's okay. Like, you can make those decisions, or the payback period's too long, or something like that. But now you've got the math and how to analyze this. Now, for those of you that have like a physical based business, a cost per click number may be kind of difficult to get your head around. So let's go the other way and think about, well, I kind of know my, maybe you know how much you want to spend. Maybe you're like, I'm going to spend $5,000 on $5,000 on a marketing campaign. So the way you can kind of back in from that type of expenditure to kind of something that, is more digitally based is, so my question would be like, okay, you're going to spend $5,000. How many customers do you expect to get out of that $5,000? And, your answer might be, let's say it's 5. So I'm going to spend $5,000. I'm going to get 5,000, I'm going to get 5 customers. And so I would say, okay, cool. So if you spend $5,000 and you get $5,000 or 5 customers, you're getting $1,000 in revenue from a customer. Now tell me, on $1,000 in revenue, how much of that is profit? Let's say it's 50%. So $500. So what I would suggest is that your lifetime value is actually $500. And what you then can do is, now you know that your customer acquisition costs needs to be greater than $500. Or I'm sorry, your customer acquisition cost needs to be less than $500. So then, what I really want to say is, okay, cool. So you're going to spend, like, if you're just going to spend that money, and you're not able to amplify that money, like, that campaign's not going to work, because my customer acquisition cost was $1,000 per customer, right? $5,000 by 5, but my lifetime value is always going to be less than that amount. So really what we want to think about is, okay, if I'm going to spend $5,000, what I really want to think about is, like, okay, am I actually happy if I only get my money back, like that $5,000 needs to lead to more than those five customers, right? It needs to lead, if I'm getting $500 in gross profits, and that's a reasonable number. Maybe you come to that math and that number is not reasonable, and so you retune this. But if that's where you land up, like you shouldn't spend that money. So what we want to then think about is, okay, well, how do we retool? How do we rethink about what is my total expenditure? What is my total customer acquisition cost, and what can I expect, to come out of the lifetime value out the other side? So in a physical business, you maybe like are bouncing these things more off of each other a little bit. But ultimately, what you're trying to do then is if I can get the top line, the LTV versus customer acquisition cost, and I kind of get that set at my top line, then what I can do is, okay, now what I want to do is I want to take that customer acquisition cost and I want to break it down by the various things that I may be doing. So in the example of my business at Home Depot, I know what it takes I know the cost of getting a booth at Home Depot. Like that's going to cost X amount of dollars per day. I can do some sort of tracking to figure out, well, okay, how many people did I have walk up to me? How many possible leads did I have generated based on those dollars? And then, out of those interactions, how many addresses did I capture? And then what's a reasonable estimation of how many people I send mail to are going to actually convert? So you can kind of back into this, even though it's not as explicit as Google is, and it's not as easy. Maybe you can back into a very similar, math for determining this calculation. So again, the reason we do this is this gives us a framework on how we should be thinking about our marketing efforts. Are we performing our marketing efforts profitably? Marketing we don't just want to spend money and not, if we spend $1 on marketing, we better get $1.01 back, or else it's not working. We're not just out here brand marketing and investing in brand in the future. We're trying to, figure out how do we design a funnel such that, basically when we spend money, we make money. And the more money we spend, the more money we make. That's where we're trying to get. That's what we're trying to figure out. And when we find something and we make some reasonable assumptions, maybe we make some assumptions on what our capture rate or our drip rate are. So when we make some reasonable assumptions, we go out and test. And maybe once we test, maybe we find that, maybe our capture rate is actually rather than 20%, maybe it's 30%. Well, cool. That means, we basically can go after less profitable customers because we're converting more on the same number of dollars. So what we find in the field as we actually test these things will inform, who should I be going after? How much time and effort should I spend trying to bring a customer into my business? So I hope that's helpful. Again, this spreadsheet is kind of what I'm going to expect to have do this week. Pick 3 keywords that you think you would target an ad on Google. Do some research into your cost per click, your capture rate, and your drip rate. You can do these again, and if you know them from experience, or if you use ChatGPT or another tool to help you analyze your industry, and let me know if you have any problems. Okay.